Well, for 9 weeks and 3 days now, the Academic Staff Union of Universities has been on strike. And something played out yesterday. I'll just share this quickly with you. It was on social media, on Twitter. A pop artist, or Afro-pop artist, as we say, Rema, put out a tweet saying, well, he's trying to choose between two schools, one private university and one public school, because according to him, ever since he got admission, he had not even started or attended classes just yet. And, a lot of people started voting. Some voted public, some voted private. In fact, you had those schools come out on Twitter to try and, ask him to come, find very creative ways to do it. But, a lot of conversation, a lot of fun around that. But what was very instructive for me was the sad commentary that actually one of the schools, if he chose the private school, he would resume ASAP. But if he chose the public school, they'll still have to wait because ASUU is on strike. And amidst all of the banter, as they say, that was what stuck out for me. It was just the irony of it. But this morning, let's try to find out what has happened so far. Our students are at home, not in school, for close to 10 weeks now. And to do that with us, we're joined on the program by Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, who is the President, Academic Staff Union of Universities. He joins us live from Umuahia this morning via Zoom. Prof, it's good to have you on the program. And I'll just get straight into it. What is outstanding right now?
Thank you very much, and good morning. Well, nothing really has happened since we declared the strike. The federal government has not shown any sign that they are going to resolve these issues. We've not had any meaningful meeting with any of their organs, neither the Minister of Labour nor the Minister of Education. And the negotiations they put in place, we had a brief meeting with them, and they didn't come with anything from the government. They just went around the ministries, got some information that we expected, and came. That had nothing to do with the strike. So really, nothing significant has happened since we declared the strike about 9 weeks ago, which means that this system is really not interested in about education. If all the universities are shut down for 9 weeks and there's no single comment from the government side, it shows that something really is going.
We had to bring back this conversation because there's a tendency for people to just move on and get used to this. In some other climes, if schools stay shut for more than a day, I mean, you can imagine what would happen. So let's maybe refresh the memories of people who may have moved on naturally. I mean, man, we like to move on a lot, especially in this climate. What are the issues at stake? Just so that Nigerians can know yet again, in case we have forgotten, what issues are at stake, if you can just itemize them.
Thank you very much. In 2009, ASUU and federal government signed an agreement that would have changed the trajectory of Nigerian tertiary education by today. That would have been having foreign students in our university, foreign lecturers in our university. One of the person was providing solution to the problem of this country. But sadly enough, that agreement have not been implemented after 9 years. And that agreement was, both sides agreed that every 3 years should be reviewed. But 12 years later, it has not been reviewed. 30 years later, I'm sorry. What are the issues? Number one is the issue of funding of the universities. Number two is the welfare of staff, of lecturers in the university and staff and students. And number three is the issue of autonomy of the system. And number four are other general issues. That is the broad headline on which we reach an agreement. So we have been pushing this government to implement the overtime. When we finished that agreement, federal government didn't believe what was in the agreement. So they set up a committee, their own committee, headed by the present chairman of INEC, Professor Yaku, to go around all the universities with experts to look at the state of the universities. And they came out with a need assessment report that was very damning. Now you have a first generation university using stove as Bonsi burner. You have some universities where you have 16 students in 12 by 12 feet room. You have some universities that laboratory are completely decayed, degenerated. You have a lecture theater where you have students sitting on bed floor while lectures are ongoing. You have students hanging on windows and having lectures. You have students having lectures in some stadium, not in the classroom. And based on that, that committee recommended that the federal government should pump in the sum of 1.3 trillion naira to bring our education up to date as you have in that part of the world. But as surprisingly enough, 13 years later, apart from the 200 billion released in 2014 by the regime of President Goodluck Jonathan, nothing significant has been released in the past 7 years of this regime. All that they have released is just the sum of 70 billion naira. Nothing else. And what would that do? And when you go to the Senate, you can see the impact of this little money they have released. You can see the massive impact. If that money had been released, as we agreed with Jonathan, that it should be released on 200 billion naira on an annual basis, Nigerian university would have been different today. But nothing signal has happened. That is one. Two. While we were doing this on autonomy, suddenly they introduced what they call IPPIS, a terrible program that was bought by the World Bank in 2006. The World Bank that had nothing to do with Nigeria bought this program, calculated the amount, and pumped on Nigerians our debt, and said, go and use it to pay your staff. Why should a country like Nigeria with intellectuals go outside to buy a program just to pay salary? You are paying billions of dollars to buy a program to pay salary to your staff. Very ridiculous. And they introduced to the system. And we said, you can't do that. The university is different from civil servants or any other thing. You cannot bring a single line payment system to pay salary of lecturers. And we challenged that we can produce a better alternative, which they accepted, that we should go ahead. And within 3 months, we produce a better alternative that was tested by NIDA, and an agent of government that is actually who we are seeing now working for IPs, working for IMF, and a program that you tested 690 something different tests, and the program scored 99.3%, and you say it failed. Meanwhile, what we agree with government that we will produce a program that is superior to IPs, and we have asked this NIDA, have you tested the IPs to know whether it is to compare with our UTAS and see the one that is better? They say they have not tested IPs since 2006 that it was brought by the foreign country. It has not been tested. And the impact is what we are having today. So if you go to those who, yes,
pardon me,
who are aiming for IP today, yes.
Okay, you can land on that one. I'll comment. Just land.
I said, if you look at it today, look at the report of the Auditor General of the Federation of 2009. You can see the harm IPs have done to this system. If you look at the report of the head of service of the Federation recently, that about 3,000 to 30,000 who have been secretly put into IPs from back, it shows you that IPs were just a fraud to defraud this country. And we have produced alternative, and the NIDA and their team and the Minister of Communication are doing everything to destroy that IPs. That scored 99.3% in their score, in their test.
So essentially, this is about welfare, the 2009 and eventually the 2012 needs assessment, and IPs versus UTAS, essentially.
No, there's a major one that is more fundamental to all of it.
Okay.
Which is the negotiation of the 2009 agreement. We concluded that negotiation in May 2021. And the government team was supposed to go back to their government to get their permission to sign. Why we decided to also go back to our members to get their permission to sign. Since May 2021 till date, they have not come back to us. Almost a year.
Right. So to what extent, Prof, was the 2009 agreement renegotiated? Because, I mean, if people cast their minds back, for those who can remember, even the 2009 agreement, the build-up was rocky. ASUU had been on strike, I think, since June that year for about 4 months until they came to an agreement. And I recall the back and forth. The then Minister of Education, Dr. Sam Egu, and the ASUU president at that time, Prof. Awuzie, I remember. It was under President Yar'Adua's administration at that time. It was a major one. It was really rocky. So the 2009 agreement, some would even tell you, was faulty from the scratch. I recall the Senate president saying that, people that even represented the government didn't know their right from their left. He was quoted as saying that some years after. So really, under what condition was the 2009 agreement signed in the first place? Because it seems that's where we're building all of this on.
Thank you very much. The chairman of that negotiation team for quite a long time is known as Onosode. You remember Onosode?
Gamaliel Onosode.
Yes. Honestly, Gamaliel Onosode was the chairman of the committee until later on Ayo Banjo was brought in. It was a friendly environment. When we raise issues about what is going on, even the man had to travel around the country at his own expense to determine whether what we are saying are correct. And they were all correct. And we signed that agreement. Are you following? When we finished signed that agreement, government decided to say, no, we need to investigate what you have done. And they set up a panel, like I said, headed by Professor Mahmoud, to go around on his own, the government team, to look at whether what we are saying are correct. And they came out with the need assessment report that was adopted by the government. So there was no pressure, there was nothing. The issue were well discussed, both sides made concession, and we reached an agreement, friendly agreement that was signed after getting the permission of the government. And somebody will not come today and say they were pushed to sign it. It's just how to dodge what they are supposed to. If they have done, what is 200 billion to fund university in a year? If you want to be interested in Nigerian university, that is it. So it's not correct. Let me also give you this. When you go around Nigerian university today, you will not see any foreign student, except those maybe whose mother is the Nigerian or father is the Nigerian. If you go around Nigerian university today, you will not see any foreign lecturer. The few that were here before, that were on sabbatical, that were on a contract, have been removed by a piece.
Okay.
But go to Ghana. Go to Ghana. You have not less than 1,000 Nigerians teaching in Ghana. You have not less than 10,000 Nigerian students schooling in Ghana. Why should a student and lecturer be in Ghana and not Ghanaian lecturer in Nigeria?
Well, Prof, being someone who knows the inside workings, I mean, you know how this has played out so far. So yes, from 2009, we transitioned to the 2012 needs assessment and the outcome of that. But in 2013, there was another strike by ASUU, incidentally, and then Minister of Labour, Emeka Wogu, said there were some areas, of the agreements that needed to be renegotiated if it was to be satisfactorily implemented. By that time, the strike was, I think, in its third week in July 2013. So again, 2009 had its issues. 2012, just a year after, issues came up. But when you say that this was renegotiated in 2021, to what extent was it renegotiated? What did ASUU have to maybe give and take?
Let's go back a little to 2013. An agreement with two parties. Are you following? Yes. It's not a solid rock. If any party have an issue, you call the other party, say, let's look at this issue, we're having problem, let's look at it. That is what is done in an agreement. It's not solid that it must be sold. Agreement, that's why we say every 3 years, let it negotiate. So that if there are issues the government cannot handle, we look at them. If there are issues they also want, we look at them. That's what we agree, that every 3 years, so that we solve this problem too. When we met in 2014, we met with President Goodluck Jonathan for 14 hours, the president who was committed to that issue as at that time. We look at all the issue again, we say, instead of reading 1.3 as they go into the system, let's spread it over 6 years. That is our concession. Let's spread it over 6 years instead of releasing 1.3 trillion at a go. Which both sides accepted, and the first one was released. If they had done that, kept to their own side for 200 billion a year, we will not have this problem. So we have always considered as we go along on issues that the government raised that they cannot implement, but they will not do anything. They believe a strike is a problem, which is not correct. Strike is a symptom of a problem. As far as they are concerned, one has to call out the strike. The problem has been solved, everybody goes to sleep, which is not correct. You will not do those things you sign. All the MOA they have signed, up to 6 of them, nothing.
Well, Prof,
that is the crisis. So we are as at this time we have free negotiation on funding, on wages for lecturers, on the environment, on the condition for students, and all of them. We have looked at all those ones. Government came that the students should be charged 1 million naira per school fees. And we said no. And we all look at both sides and agree on how we can go forward without the student going to pay 1 million. The student of Nigeria who is earning 30,000 per month go and pay 1 million school fees, which means that the children of the ordinary Nigeria, all the workers, will be pushed out of the university system.
Well, Prof, one of the questions that comes to my mind now is for you to help find out if there is a common thread with all of these strikes. We've been hearing about strikes since 1992, and it would seem like it's the same pattern. Government has an agreement with ASUU. Government does not comply or fulfill its own part of the bargain, and then ASUU goes on strike, and it's been the same story up until the current one. The longest strike was last year or 2 years ago, where ASUU was on strike for 9 straight months. Is there a common thread that we need to look out for to ensure that this does not, at least once we are over this, we don't have to go there again?
You see, it is a very simple issue. All over the world, just last month, early this year, lecturers in UK went on strike. Some lecturers went on strike. The government intervened immediately, and within 24 hours, they resolved it. That is strike all over the world. There's a strike. There's no part of the country of the world you don't have strike. But you don't allow the strike. You pretend that nothing happened. We are, like I said, we are 9 weeks on strike. Government has not uttered a word. Would that happen in any same country? That lecturers, all universities are shut down 9 months, 9 weeks. The government side pretend that nothing has happened. So a strike is a normal thing all over the world. It's there in national NLO rule. But the issue is that when two people are quarreling over a long time, let me give you something. When we started this issue, or this strike we are now, we have met with the president of this country, you recall. We met with chief of staff. We met with senior president. We met with the speaker of House of Representatives. We met with the minister of labor so many times, more than 8 times. We met with the minister of education. We have met with NIREC, Nigerian Interreligion Council, who said they will intervene, and they did intervene. And the president promised that 3 ministers will handle it. Minister of labor, minister of education, and chief of staff. On February 1st, we are entering May. They have not even called up for one meeting. In other country, they anticipate strike and they arrest it as quickly as possible.
But I recall,
and they told them that within 2 weeks they will resolve it. But they don't do their own part. That's why the strike prolonged. This strike can be resolved in 2 days.
Yeah, one of the things that we've heard, I mean, from even the conciliator, also said it at some point that ASUU should please go back to school because the government doesn't have that much money to fulfill some of these promises now, because the time since 2001 and 2009 have since changed. Revenue for government is very, very tight now.
Look, you see, it's also very funny. A government that cannot raise 200 billion naira to revamp all Nigerian universities and bring them to world standard doesn't have money to do that. But that same government can raise 4 trillion naira. I mean, 4 trillion naira for fuel subsidy. Fuel subsidy and university education, which is more important to any country that wants to move forward. You can go and make a budget to raise 4 trillion for fuel subsidy in a year, but you cannot raise 200 billion to fund your education because you don't have money. It's priority. You can spend 228 billion to feed children in primary secondary school that I have not seen any child being fed. I have not seen any. Maybe you are saying you can give 220 billion to feed children in primary and secondary schools, but you cannot raise 200 billion to fund your universities. It's issue of priority. That is the problem. If you remove 200 billion from 4 trillion, you still have 3.8 trillion to fuel subsidy. To me, but to me, essentially, also,
your suggestion is that the federal government should take at least from that 4 trillion naira for subsidy, 200 billion.
Just 200 billion, 200 billion. Yeah, yes.
Okay, so the government can.
I'm not talking about taking. It does not take more than 1 trillion to build a standard refinery, but you are going to spend 4 trillion to subsidize, not to build a refinery. What is more important? We have the crude here. We have the crude. Why would you now spend 4 trillion to carry your troops abroad, refine and brought back to you? When you can spend it at 1 trillion to
remember there was a time
build the refinery for you. Yes.
Right. Remember there was a time I asked on this program. Pardon me.
If you
remember there was a time.
University system,
Prof, pardon me. There was a time on this program I was asking you.
Build a refinery for you in the next 2 years.
Okay, there was a time I was asking you on this program that it was still the same question, interestingly, about subsidy and, funding Nigerian universities. I don't know if you recall. And the question was simple. Would it be a fair proposal to tell government that, rather than spending this huge sum on subsidy, which, by the way, government has said they're not quite in with this, but for the masses, they'd like to go ahead. Rather than spend this huge chunk, how about we take that and invest in our schools and say, at least we know that we're investing this money in schools and Nigerians can collectively endure till we reap at least the fruit of that seed that we sow across our federal or public schools. Is that a fair proposal now for you?
Let me give you this. We in the ASUU would not believe that it's fuel subsidy.
And that,
we in ASUU, academic staff.
But is that proposal fair for you?
No, let me answer. I will answer your question. We don't believe there is fuel subsidy. There is no country in the world you have the crude, you have the intelligentsias, and you say you are going to be importing fuel for the past 23 years. You are importing fuel. You couldn't build a refinery. There is something that is ongoing. It's not subsidy. No country will do that in the world. That you have the crude, you have the intelligentsia. In the 60s, 70s, 80s, we were building 4 refineries, and now 1990 today, we can't build one refinery or service the old one, and spending billions every year to so-called service those ones that are not working. So we don't believe in first subsidy. That's one too. What we are saying is, if the priority of Nigeria, just like every other part of the world, that number one priority education, because education will ginger your economy, ginger your system. We will be looking at how to fund education properly by allocating a very good budgetary allocation to education that we have in other countries like Ghana, like South Africa, like where our students are running to today in Africa. I'm not talking about Europe or Ukraine. We will fund our education to generate money for you. We were told, Central Bank came out with a report recently that Nigeria spend 1.6 trillion naira every year to fund school fees in outside the country. 1.6 trillion. If our system is working, we'll be getting top money from other countries. So that's what we are saying. If this priority is education, we rather than subsidy. Subsidy, I don't know what that one means in all true sense, because you can't be having the product and you are subsidizing it. We should refine. It didn't take Dangote 5 years to build the refinery. It didn't. Okay. We are taking Nigerian government more than 23 years. You cannot do something.
It's interesting that you are saying that as well now, because we recall that, even before the president, came into power in 2015, he had said the same thing about subsidy not being existent. But the realities are the same. Maybe if you had different facts, you would also think the same. But listen to this comment from the governor of Delta State on the same issue.
The president needs to put on record that the ongoing strike by the Academic Staff Union of Universities has no bearing with the Delta State government. We are not in dispute with any staff union in any of our tertiary institutions. The issues raised by ASUU at national level do not pertain to us in Delta, as the allowances they are asking for are already being enjoyed by staff and tertiary institutions. Also, I wish to also respectfully disagree with the position of ASUU that there is an unhealthy proliferation of state universities in the country. The establishment of universities is on the concurrent list, and as a state, we do so when the need arises. In our case, it is to fill the gap created by shortage of space and increase access to university education by our qualified youths.
A number of governments in the states, different states, might also take the same position as the governor of Delta State. How do you react, Prof?
You see, it's very laughable. Go to Delta State University. 90% of the projects in Delta State University that have been built in the past 20 years are built by funds from TED Fund, a product of ASUU struggle. I want the Delta State government to say, different from this year, we don't want to have access to TED Fund money. Most of the projects built in the past 2 years, they are from need the revitalization fund. In Delta State University, how many projects have the state government funded in that university in the past 23 years? All the funds for the new projects, training of their staff, they all come from TED Fund, a project of ASUU, and need assessment fund. So that is it. When they talk, they don't look at the scenario. Let him visit Delta State University and look at the scripture on all the new buildings there. Are they buried in Delta State government? That is true. Two, a university in Egypt have more than 500,000 students. One university, 500,000 students. Delta State University don't have up to 12,000 students. And you are building 3 new ones. When you cannot fund the first one, the only one you have. They couldn't fund it. They cannot fund the one you have, and you are building new 3 for political reasons. From Asaba to Agbo is 65 kilometers. Agbo to Delta is 55 kilometers. With the distance of 100 kilometers, you're having 3 universities, state universities. University of Education, University of whatever. When you can use that money, you are going to use to pay vice chancellors, you are going to pay pro-chancellors, governing councils, registrars, person, and what have you. You can spend that money to increase the admission, the space. In Delta State University is simple.
Well, Prof, the issues you are speaking, the issues that you are speaking with are that of infrastructure. But the one that the governor of Delta State spoke to was the welfare of ASUU members, lecturers, staff of the university. Are members of ASUU in Delta, in these schools in Delta State, are they complaining?
Let me answer the question very well. What is welfare? Is welfare about salary alone? For those of you in the channels, if you come to work and there is no office where you sit down, present this program, will you have welfare? If you don't have the facility you have today that you can reach out to everywhere in the country, can you run Sunshine daily? It's not part of the welfare. Can you be scoring, can you be the best TV station in Nigeria if you don't have those facilities? So welfare, a lecturer need an office. A lecturer need a laboratory where he can do his work. A lecturer need to be funded to do his master's and PhD. Those are welfare. Salary is just part of it. And two, let us say implementing the salary we negotiated with government. Even if we didn't negotiate that, will he be paying that to his workers? The workers, the lecturers in Delta State University are complaining bitterly because they are being maltreated. They have no pension scheme. I'm talking about welfare. What is the name of their welfare scheme? Their pension scheme.
The Delta State government is just one.
Lecturers, but they are being strangled.
Okay. The Delta State government is just one of such institutions. But the question that I want to ask you...
responding to the Delta State government.
I get that and I understand. But speak also to the responsibility of the management of those schools. You talked about the infrastructure of several of these tertiary institutions that have gone decrepit over the years. But there are management systems in those schools that watched those things happen over the years. Is there anything ASUU is saying to them to ensure that in the event that government indeed does what ASUU is expecting, that we're not going to be telling the same story in another 5 years or 10 years from now?
If government does what we have talked about and it is sustained, we didn't say just finish this year. If it's sustained, first of all, build the infrastructure and sustain the funding. Give between 15 and 20% of your budget to education. We have
you haven't spoken to the capacity, Prof, just a second. You have not spoken to the capacity of those who will maintain the infrastructure that ASUU is fighting that government should put in place in the schools. Because if we have to spend the same money over and over again, there is going to be a problem.
No. This 1.3 trillion we're talking about is to upgrade all the infrastructure. Then each university should be able to maintain the infrastructure. And that's how it is. Will you leave up to ASUU? If Delta give 10 to 20% budget to education, this issue of maintenance will be taken care of. Last year, get 5.4% to education. Ghana gets 16 to 20%. In the southwest, in the southwest in those days, we're giving 30% to education, and you saw the effect. Now we don't take education as a priority. We just wave it. You know why? It is clear to all of us, and you know, my friend in the channel. Their children are not in these universities. They have all left. You take them away. They don't go to our health center. How many governors will go to the teaching hospital in the university to go and for help? They run abroad. If they can make it possible to all of them to stay there with their children, they will take it as priority. But it doesn't bother them. 9 weeks, no discussion, because their children are not here. And Nigerian people should hold those who are coming after they're responsible.
Well,
you can't send your children abroad and you want to run our system.
A very important point you have made, and this has also featured in the debate around the state of our public institutions in Nigeria. There was a point you made about the 4 trillion naira subsidy, using at least maybe 1 trillion to build a refinery, and you talked about the Dangote refinery. By the way, that costs about $19 billion. That's about 10 trillion for a 650,000 barrel per day refinery. So clearly we'll need more than ×2 or 4 trillion naira to even build a refinery, judging from Dangote's refinery. But, you also made a point earlier on that there was a proposal to have students pay 1 million naira, and you had to stand against that. But it raises that point of the fact that education is actually whether we like it or not, expensive, which is why you're fighting for at least 200 billion naira to be paid, to be given to upgrade universities and sort a lot of other things. So when would we start having that conversation about how to properly cost our university if we want to ensure that they, I mean, go to other schools abroad, they don't pay the same amount we pay here. So is that a conversation you're also having with government and other stakeholders?
Thank you. Go to Germany. Have you got to go to Germany? Do the student pay fee? Go to Britain. If you are a worker in Britain and you are sacked, government takes care of your welfare. You give accommodation, they pay you. Does that happen in Nigeria? So when we are talking
I'm sorry, Prof, on what basis, on what basis are you comparing Nigeria with Germany, really? On what, is it in terms of our GDP, in terms of, on what basis, really, the value of our money, or really what basis?
No, you brought the idea of what happened. You brought the idea that in that countries, people pay fee that they don't pay here.
Not Germany, I said other countries. So I'm asking that.
It's not correct. That what I'm saying, that thing you are saying is not correct. Because in many of those countries, the education is subsidized. If a parent is sacked from job, they are taken care of, so that the man can pay the fee. But in Nigeria, do you have any social security? What is the minimum wage in Nigeria? $30, 30 naira, 30,000 naira. What is that equivalent to? How can such a man pay 1 million? Some of us, where we came from, look at our background, we will not be here we are today if we have this type of system where people are forced to pay all sorts of things. The students are already paying. When I was a student, I stayed in a hostel or two. How many students can stay in a hostel today? They are already paying heavily. And besides, look at our constitution. Education is a right. You are not doing anybody a favor. It's a right.
On that same issue of the reference that you just made to education in the UK, Festus Akimboyewa on Twitter is kind of responding to you. He says, not all lecturers went on strike in the UK, and they went on strike because they want improvement in their pensions. But the ASUU president should know that education is marketized in the UK. UK lecturers are not, well, that's the much that he said there. How do you respond?
My response is this. Many Nigerians have become so, you have the inferiority complex. Inferiority complex. The Nigerian will send a child to Ukraine, go and study. You leave Unilag. The Nigerian will busy talking about that country. They don't look at the real trajectory of those countries. In UK, what is the budgetary allocation for UK government to education compared to Nigeria? Percentage, we're not talking about the quantum. You see, Nigeria, a little thing runs away. A doctor runs away. Everybody running away. Take your children away. God, inferiority complex. The place if I go to US, it's better for me. Forget that this is your country. This is where your children will be. This is where your grandchildren will come back to. So I don't respond to such people. They have inferiority complex.
Well, you know, this is, I'm hoping we can come off this conversation with at least some workable solutions. People have actually suggested that maybe we should raise like a GoFundMe account so Nigerians can actually raise these funds. If it looks like, you know, government is now bulging, how about we just call on Nigerians, let us pull together our funds. I know that at least we salvaged the tertiary, you know, institutions in Nigeria. But there are those who, you know, they say, let's face reality. The government says, we're raising a renegotiation committee. Apparently, ASUU has not been attending. I think the last time it was only the government side that showed up for the meeting. And they said that, you know what, maybe it's high time that ASUU, you know what, steps down from this metaphorical ivory tower. You know, it is like a metaphor for people in a place that is divorced from the reality out there, which is why they use the term ivory tower. So what do you say to those people that say, well, it's time for ASUU to come down from that ivory tower and face reality?
We are facing reality and face it very well. The reality is that the government is not interested in public education. They want it to happen. What happened in primary secondary to happen? Take over by their own university, private. This story we're talking about, this young man who said one of the private universities should come to lead Unilag, and because Unilag has to be delayed. And let me tell you about that young man and his advice. In 10 years' time, when he graduates for Unilag, he'll be a proud alumnus of Unilag. But if you graduate for that small university somewhere, nobody will know where he is. So if you think about the future, that is it. Two, is that the reality is that Nigeria is giving the lowest percentage of its budget to education because of lack of priority. Any day they give the proper percentage to education, you solve the problem. That is true. If you look at the agreement we are talking about, or 2021 that government refused to sign, there are two major sections, funding and welfare and infrastructure. We have raised a number of issues that will assist government in funding the system, just like we did with tech fund. But they are not looking at that. When you look at the funding document, we have raised where government can raise this money without going to the budgetary system, but they are so-called positive of fund. We have raised all these areas they can raise funds, just like we raised with tech fund, that is also raising money today. But they are not bothered to look at that. They just look at the salary, which is not correct. We expect the government to set up a technical team, a team that will read without bias. So look at that agreement.
Okay,
we
Prof.
have suggested how government can raise money to increase the funding.
Yeah, just a quick one, and then we can conclude on this conversation. A lot of helplessness and hopelessness for many students today whose future literally depends on the activities of ASUU. And ASUU is definitely also calling on government to do the needful in order for them to go back to school. It would seem like everyone is on tethers right now. What must give for ASUU to return to school?
Well, for the students, I have more than 8 children in school. Some my own, some are those I'm sponsoring. I'm sponsoring more than 8 students who are not my children in the system because of the environment of fathers. So they are here, they are all with me. If you look around, you see them around here. So they are my children are too. But for me, it is better for my children to graduate with good certificate, with laboratories that are well established, have good degree that can go out with, than just rushing them through the system and put them into the market as we are doing in some of the universities today. Let me tell you, in the 60s and 70s, you don't hear about building collapsing in Nigeria. Because the engineers that were trained then passed through the system, good laboratories, good practical, and what have you, and they went to the system to man the system. Today, there is no day, week, a building does not collapse in Nigeria, including a 21-story building. That is the outcome of what Nigeria is building without funding our education. You didn't hear about building collapse in the 70s, 80s, but today is any week the building does not collapse, killing human beings because of the poor laboratory, poor infrastructure we have in the system. And these people go out from this system, because God, for that reason, within a short time, they then become head of very sensitive area of the country, and you are having the product. So that is it. Nigeria should think about this country. It took us just 3 months to develop a program that federal government is paying billions of naira to a company outside. It took us 3 months to develop UTAS. And so as if we have been paying so much money to the country, if government have challenged us, say, do this for us in 2006, we don't need to, those trillions, billions we are paying to those foreign countries would have been safe for our education system. If you look at today, every government travel abroad, we are looking for foreign partner, we are looking for foreign partner, we are looking for this. When you have your university there that you can challenge to do those work for you.
Well, Prof, I think that's a great place to anchor, really. It's been quite an interesting conversation, but the problem is still out there, and we look forward to at least a resolution in the shortest possible time. But just quickly, which of this is the ASUU's handle on Twitter? Because a lot of people try to engage. So you have the ASUU NGR, ASUU NGN, and ASUU_NGN, and a host of others. Do you have an official Twitter handle for ASUU so people can know where to get the right information?
We decided not to have one because the people have been, they're all fake. All the ones are all fake. The people have been creating, so we decided not to have any official one for now until we can resolve this issue of security of the cyber system. But today, the people are just creating all sorts of things. So we are being very careful and we are working on that.
So no Twitter handle for ASUU?
No, no, no.
Well, we'd like to thank you so much, Professor Emmanuel Sodeka, President, Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU. We wish you the very best. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We'll go on a quick break now, and when we return, we'll take a look at another angle to this, how to solve this seemingly intractable problem, because whether you like it or not, the solutions are out there. So let's rein them in a moment. Stay with us.